Well, indeed, we do have breaking news for you on this Wednesday, July 11th. Chuck Freeby standing by with Bob Nagel in the WHME Sports Studio. And the breaking news is a big revelation from high school sports today, where the Mishawaka High School Cavemen will be moving from the NIC to the Northern Lakes Conference in the fall of 2020. This move precipitated by Elkhart's merging of Memorial and Central into one school. That one school is going to stay in the NIC. That meant the NLC only had 7 members, Bob. They were looking for an 8th. My understanding is there were 2 schools that applied, New Prairie and Mishawaka gets the nod.
But that can't happen because Mishawaka is a charter member of the Northern Indiana Conference, and they would never make that change. Well, guess what? There's a lot of reasons involved in this, and I think what we got to do is be careful how we react. You know, right away the traditionalists are going to say you can't leave, and Athletic Director Dean Hubbard, very familiar with both conferences, and as a matter of fact, the whole map of Northern Indiana, made this decision based on a lot of different factors, and I think it could eventually be beneficial for Mishawaka as far as competition, and also you got to be concerned about finances.
Well, I think they're a great fit in terms of the NLC. If you look at the schools that are in the NLC, schools like Warsaw, Goshen, very similar in makeup to Mishawaka. And then you mentioned the finances of it. Let's face it, the Northern Lakes Conference schools, when they go on the road, bring a following with them that the NIC schools have not done and have not done for years.
And the NIC schools, and we're talking particularly probably about the South Bend schools, don't even bring crowds to their home games.
Right.
So that's been the reality. And when you're in that office and you've got those bills coming in and you've got to find a way to pay for your athletic program without impacting any of the education funds, because you can't do that, you've got to find an answer. And I think that's one of the things that's really been out there, out front, not only with opportunities for other schools and other conferences, but certainly in the South Bend schools being a part of the Northern Indiana Conference, you got to have some responsibility there.
Well, I guarantee you this much. Fall of 2020, when Warsaw plays Mishawaka, you can book it now. It's going to be one of the games of the week. So just put it down right now in your little pad.
on there?
When that happens, when Bart Curtis has to play his former team and his former colleague Keith Kinder, that's going to be a game of the week. But I think football, there's a ton of intriguing matchups with Mishawaka and the NLC. I look at Mishawaka Northwood, Mishawaka Plymouth. Those are going to be great games.
The impact, I think, is really going to be on schools like Northwood and Plymouth, who have been kind of, when you look at football, kind of dominant partners in the conference. When you look at basketball, been pretty good in the conference, and you bring Mishawaka in, a school of good size, and their basketball program took a jump last year. Football has been very competitive. I think Keith Kinder's going to do a great job there. So it could really help make Northern Lake Conference into more of a, almost like a super conference in that they've got enough schools and probably a couple of divisions, and they're gonna have a great product.
Basketball, as you see some Mishawaka highlights now, Ron Heklinski did a great job in his first year at the helm of the Caveman program. Who knows what they're going to look like in terms of the squad in 2020, but the traditional basketball powers in the NLC have been Warsaw, Plymouth, and lately Northwood. Concord had a run in the 80s and 90s. They have cooled off somewhat since, but again, some great basketball rivalries and a chance to see some new opponents at the Cave that you haven't had before.
And you've got other sports involved. We were talking a little bit before we came on the air here about baseball, for example. Mishawaka wins the sectional last year. And Plymouth and Northwood have had great programs. Warsaw's had some outstanding athletes. It's going to be a good product. Now, not to throw the Northern Indiana Conference under the bus, because that's a substantial conference, got a lot of great schools. I know how much it meant to Marion and St. Joe to get into that conference. I know that they're still going to have a great team in Elkhart, which is going to be great because they should be more competitive with a school like Penn. You've got some smaller schools still with Bremen, and you've got Jimtown. Are they going to go looking? Are they going to maybe pursue something in the Hoosier North Conference? Could this eventually impact the Duneland Conference? Does a LaPorte come over? You know, you got to look at all the numbers of what could happen.
Well, and the other part of that equation is a lot of people have been wondering for years if Penn would go over to the Duneland Conference to participate. They're looking for more schools of its size and, quite frankly, athletic pedigree than what they've faced in the NIC. There's a lot of factors that come into play. travel. Certainly, if you involve the Duneland, the time zone change, which I think really was one of the things that hurt New Prairie in the process of the NLC. The travel and the time zones were probably the two biggest factors. For those of you watching on Facebook, feel free to throw in your comments. I know Clint Johnson already has. He talks about, he thinks it's an awesome move for the Northern Lakes Conference and for Mishawaka. He's a big Dean Huppert fan, as are we. We worked with Dean over the years in television, and it's certainly a progressive step for Mishawaka.
And I think a little bit of a courageous step. You know, they've done a lot of things at Mishawaka recently, and involving finding a way to fund improvements around the campus and improve the building. You know, the roof was leaking 3 years ago, and now they got the roof fixed, which is a nice idea because it's the oldest high school gym in Indiana, and it's a great facility. We love working there in the caves. So we've got a lot of tradition there at Mishawaka, but I think they're going to be a great asset.
Well, and that's why you also have reactions like the one we just got from Ben Adams, who says, I can't believe it, I don't understand it. And I think you're going to see reactions throughout the day and throughout the week from both sides. There was somebody who personally messaged me today who says, you know, well, you're not going to find anything that makes everybody happy. And I said, well, good luck in doing that, because just about any decision today doesn't make everybody happy. But a courageous decision for Mishawaka going into the NLC. Of course, they just added a new girls basketball coach last night in Sarah Deshone. And while we have you for a moment, that coaching carousel continues to turn. There's still one big opening out there, and that's South Bend Riley basketball, which has not been filled yet on the boys' side.
Well, they're coming off a tough year. They lost one game and were ranked #1 for most of the season. It's a tremendous program, and there's been a lot of reasons why it was, including Mark Johnson's contribution. I thought Eric Brand did a great job last year. They're going to have to make a change this year. What direction they go, I don't know, but I know that there's a lot of kids that have gone to Riley, chosen to go to Riley and be part of what's been a good basketball tradition there. So whoever's going to get that job will have a great opportunity to hit the ground running. They've got a lot of talent back from last year. But when you look at all the openings that were created this past year, most of them are filled, and yet, you know, are we moving in the right direction? We have programs that are going to build. Are we just putting somebody in there as a stopgap, or we got guys that want to build programs?
One thing to note of South Bend's hiring in filling its coaching vacancies this year, they have gone strictly with alumni of the South Bend Community Schools. And there are a couple out there who are of interest in the Riley job, and one of those could at least create another opening somewhere else. So we'll have to see how this all pans out. Who knows?
Carousel continues?
Carousel continues, and who knows, we might have to break out that breaking news graphic one more time this week. For Bob Nagel, Chuck Freeby, thanks for joining us on Facebook Live.